Hey, Calvin, thank you so much for taking the time to connect here. And, I met you at summer camp. We were at the Mavericks summer camp a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
And
we were roommates.
exactly, we were roommates.
Yeah,
It was my first time at summer camp, believe it or not. When I was a kid, my parents, they never let me go to camp. So it was really fun to be kind of like at an adult camp and really connect with entrepreneurs like yourself. And
right.
I really
I know what you're
resonated with
talking about
you.
because I don't think. Well, no, that's not true. I was a scout, and as a scout, I went to summer camp a couple times. But yeah, it wasn't a thing that I did growing up much either.
Yeah. But when I got to kind of like learn about your story, I was like, oh, this guy's interesting because I always saw you having that shake, right? That body
Oh,
meal replacement or whatever. So it kind of like intrigued me, and you told me a little bit about it. But let me just introduce you real quick. So you're an investor, you're an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur because you're involved in multiple things. You're a speaker, you're also a mentor. And one thing that I love about you is you speak things into existence, right? You are a future special advisor to the President of the United States. So we'll dive into that a little bit.
can I just tell you about like a quick story about the future special advisor thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because at that camp where we met, on the very first night at dinner, I sit down next to this older guy who's been to many of those events, and I bring this up. I'm special advisor to the president, and he's like, "Do you know what's gonna get you there?" And I was like, "Oh, I felt like put on the spot. Now I have to have an answer." And I was like, "Well, like my personal brand or something." He's like, relationships." And
Wow.
so, and I was like, dude, you're so right. And like, since then, I've actually gotten to know people that are pretty centrally in the world of politics in this country, and it's so obvious how true that is. That like relationships are going to bring you to those kinds of situations. So that was the same camp. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. You hear a lot of people talk about your network is your net worth, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Sometimes it does matter who you actually know. So anyway, the first story I actually want to start with is that a story you told me at dinner at your house, which was you weren't always called Kelvin. So I think if you could just dive into that and why you decided to change your name, I think people will get a little bit of better insight of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so yeah, the name my parents gave me was Lars Holger Pind. And that sounds weird because I'm saying it in Danish. I'm Danish, born and raised through and through. And the thing was like that. I never liked my name that much, just overall. And I was also very early on oriented towards America. I learned how to program when I was very young. My dad would travel to the States. I would have him bring back books or computers. I learned to read English somehow on my own. And I mean, I'm sure my parents helped me, but before we learned in school, and so that when I moved to the States in 1999, it was always a hassle to have that name. Nobody understood it. Nobody knew how to pronounce it or
They'll ask
spell
you a
it or
lot of
anything like that.
questions.
Right. And so like and like spell it wrong very often. So yeah, when I met my wife, she had changed her name using a numerologist, and I met her through some circles. We met at like a spiritual teacher course called Leading Energy and Essence Practitioners. So there's a bunch of people there who had changed their names based on numerology. And numerology is something that like I hadn't been super interested in, and I'm very much of like a math, science, engineer kind of person. So I'm not like convinced or like I'm like, how does that actually work? There's that part of me. But I also remember my aunt being really into it. She was someone that I admired, and so I was like, all right, let's try it. Let's see, like, what's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I hired a numerologist, and he was like, that's great. Like, do you want to just tweak it a little bit? Do you want to change everything? I'm like, well, just change all of it. And then, like the moment he gave me these lists, so the way it works is it like each letter has a number value. You add them up, that becomes the value of each of your names, and then if you want to do sort of the full Monty version, he tells you, or they like you calculate how many names do you need, typically 3 or 4, and what number should each of them be and the order is important too. And then you just work backwards from there. So you basically you can find, or I wrote software to create lists of names that would match the numbers that I wanted. And that was when it hit me, shit, I'm gonna actually have to change my name here. That was like really wild. But I think it's powerful. Because I think I think the numerology thing actually probably is freaking real and works. Like, I think there's a lot more magic in names and numbers and those kinds of things than we typically think. But also just the identity shift of like just changing your name, right? Your name is so ingrained in who you are and who you see yourself as.
It's like the first thing you respond to, right? Like as you're growing up.
Right. Yeah, and like, who are you? I am, and then you say your name, right? Like I think it's, as you know, right? Like how you see yourself, your self-image is everything, right? If you see yourself as, healthy, you will make healthy choices and you will become healthy. If you see yourself as a couch potato, you will start behaving that way, right? So that identity shift of like getting so close to the core where it's like, I can change my identity around freaking everything, right? I think there's something deeply powerful around that.
Wow. I was on your website the other day and I saw President Calvin Coolidge, I think. I actually thought that was the way you decided. It's like, oh, I like his code. This guy is cool. Whatever. Right. I'm going to go with his name.
It started with the numbers and the numerology, and then I was looking through lists of names that started with that gave that number. I can't even remember what number it is right now. It needs to add up to. There is a calvinscalculator.com as like this like little JavaScript thing I whipped up so you can calculate there. But yeah, I saw Calvin there, and that was Calvin Coolidge was. His quote was what kept me going through many, many years of struggling and pain and feeling wrong and unworthy and unloved and insecure. So I was like, damn, that's it. I'm going to take that.
For people who know you today, I think they'll actually be surprised to hear some of the words you're saying, to say like, you didn't feel like you're worthy. Like there's a complete shift. What really shifted it? I think it's just beyond the name change, right? What are some of the things that, have helped you go from one, side of it, one polar side of it to this polar side?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, my tagline is, I've tried it all, so you don't have to. Right? So it's really not a single thing. It's a lot of things. And I'll say honestly, like, I think the unworthiness thing is probably one of those like core wounds that's just gonna, it stays with you for life, and you just get better and better, and you kind of dig deeper and deeper, but it might never be completely gone. And that's fine. You can still function, right? But like feeling that like undervaluing myself is still a pattern, is still a thing that I do. But to answer your question, therapy, coaching, spiritual teachers, I think and body therapy, body SDS is probably the thing that has moved the needle the most for me. I think, it's so easy when you're doing mind stuff like, cognitive therapy or coaching or things like that. It's very easy to deceive ourselves or like not go really, really deep into the real meat of it. But when you work through the body, it's hard to hide. You can, but it's a lot easier to penetrate some of those layers of defenses that we all have.
And you said body SDS. Well, what is that? What is SDS?
Yeah, it's a body SDS is a specific body therapy system in Denmark. It's an abbreviation for body self-development system. So the philosophy is that you help the body get in a position where it can heal itself, right? We're not trying to heal it from the outside. We're just trying to enable the body's natural abilities to heal and develop, which is my philosophy entirely. And it's created by a family over in Denmark. Body SDS specifically was created by Bengt Valentino Andersen, who is my friend and my mentor and my business partner. He's a third generation. His grandfather made furniture and found that he could heal people with his hands. and then it's just been inherited through the generations. Bengt now has 6 kids. One of them is still pretty young, but the other 5 are all working in the business. So it's a whole family, multi-generational thing. It's quite incredible. It's one of my long-term goals is to bring that education and that whole. Bengt has trained 600 therapists in this system. Bring that to America as part of my effort to help heal the people of this country.
So, is it part of the? I think the parfait. Did I say it right?
Parfait, yeah, it's like Popeye but with an F. So yeah, Parfait is a workout that he created. BVA Yoga is another workout that he created, and Body Meal is the meal replacement that he also created. So that's all Bengt's work that I'm dedicated to help bring to the world and to America. And the strategy there is basically like, can we bring Body Meal and Parfait and BVA Yoga out to people? That's going to help seed the ground, build his brand, and then like seed the ground for the education to come over later.
And how's that going? I remember you had samples at your house when I was there. Is the product now in the marketplace? Can people buy it?
No, manufacturing has been like super slow. I'm hoping, thank you for the reminder because I need to follow up with them. We're hoping to have it at the end of this month, but it might be early next month. There's been lots of delays on the manufacturing side, but not through any fault of ours. Just like it's been slow. It's been a very slow process, but we're getting there. I'm putting the team together. That's been another thing. It's just taken me a while to find the right people to execute on it. I can't, right? I don't have the time, but so I need to get the right people in place. And as always, that always might take a minute till you find the right people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we got them.
That's good. That's good. I can't wait to try it. So you, like me, were serial entrepreneurs, right? I have multiple businesses, and one of the things I'm constantly thinking about is how do I optimize my time management and how can I increase my productivity? So I'm curious to hear how you do that because, you have Simplero. We're just talking about, the body, SDS system that you're working on and a few other things that we'll dive into in a little bit. So for the listeners, I think they're probably curious to hear, like, how do you manage your time? And number 2, how do you increase your productivity?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's always a work in progress, right? But here's some key tips that I've found is that I block out my mornings. So I don't schedule anything till 1 p.m. You're my first meeting today, right? So that gives me, the mornings are my most, the time where I have the most energy and focus to actually do deep work. And I need, significant chunks of unscheduled time there to do deep work. So that's one thing. And I've set that up in my calendar. So I have a scheduling link and like, it just won't schedule stuff before 1 p.m. I also take all Wednesday and leave that completely free of any scheduling. So that I have, again, more unstructured time. And then like Saturdays are also my catching up and deep work days. So that's one thing. Something that I've been working on and like experimenting with, I think is like Tony Schwartz said it very well, which is it's not about managing your time, it's about managing your energy, right? So what that means is like you have to work with the energy that you have. You may have like a slot now and you're supposed to be working on this thing, but there's just zero energy for that and that for you in that. And there's other thing that you have energy towards. I found that at least for the way that I function, it's much better to roll with the energy of what I'm excited about, what I have passion for, what energizes me than what I should be doing. And it's okay. Like there are certain things that you just have to get done, but there's also just tons of stuff that fall through the cracks, especially right now because I don't have an executive assistant. I don't have my personal assistant. I used to have one of each, and I'm looking for replacements. But that just means there's stuff that's not going to be done, and that you have to just be okay with that, right? What are the most if the important things get done, then that's what matters.
So for people who are probably listening, what's the difference between an executive assistant and a personal assistant?
Yeah, so executive assistant is there is a higher level strategic. Basically, the executive assistant's job is to optimize my time So helping me, what are the most important things, and gatekeep my calendar and things like that. The personal assistant, I would say, like that's someone that has to be in person, and they can bring me my body meal in the afternoon, or clean the kitchen or cook a meal, or open packages or ship stuff, or just take care of run errands, all of those kinds of things.
Got it. Got it.
And they really work in tandem. So the personal assistant is kind of like the CEO of my house and all my possessions. Think of it that way, right? And the executive assistant can be remote and just helps me manage my time and be more strategic.
Yeah, it's super key to really protect your time, because that's the most, limited and important resource, right? We only have 24 hours in a day. You cannot create an extra hour or even an extra minute. So when you wake up, it's like the clock is ticking. So you just need to make sure you're pursuing your dreams, strategically, effectively, and with a laser focus, especially if you have big, hairy, audacious goals to achieve. And,
100%. One thing too, by the way, that I think is important is like I structured my entire week. So I took a look at like what are all the elements that I want in my perfect week. And then I mapped out like what time do I want to get up every morning, and what time do I want to get to bed? How much time do I want to sleep? And just mapped out hour for hour, 7 days a week, how my week is scheduled. And that's new to me, because like I used to be like, oh, I'll just go with the flow and I'll just like keep everything as unstructured as possible. But it's actually really, really helpful for me to have that structure. It's something that I've learned is like structure is freedom, discipline is freedom. Like that was not how I used to see it, but it is true once you get it and once you stop fighting it, right? Because it was before, it felt like it was my dad, like some outside authority making me do it, and I would resist it and resent it, like, oh, stupid dad, don't make me do it. Once you sort of heal that authority issue in yourself and you become whole in that, and it feels like you setting the structure for yourself, then it becomes super liberating.
So I wake up at 4 every single day. So 4 a.m. is kind of like my wake up time, and then spend some time to kind of like meditate, pray, do all that spiritual, right? Your spiritual connection. And then after that, I exercise. So usually like 4:30, 5 a.m., I'm doing some sort of workout and moving my body, right? Getting the heart pumping. For you, like, what's your morning routine look like?
Yeah, for a while I was getting up at 5:30, but I couldn't make it work with my wife's bedtime schedule. She has some things that are usually late in the day, and like I'll go to bed earlier, but then I'll wake up when she goes to bed and stuff. So I've dropped that for now. I get up at 6:15 every day, exactly, and then 7 o'clock I hit the gym or start my workout, and that will usually last 90 minutes. Typically that workout session. And so like before that is like I have a little bit of a morning ritual. I pared it way down lately, but I have like 15 minutes that I do, and then shower and then get to work around 9 o'clock depending. There's also some like kitchen and a body meal and like these things that since I don't have a personal assistant I need to take care of. I usually do that in the morning. I just like my house to be clean and in order. And then like end my meetings and my workday at 6, maybe, do a little bit of extra catch up after that. And then at 8 o'clock is when I start my wind down ritual. And then, in bed usually by, 9:30 is my ideal bedtime, and then up at 5:30. But these days it's kind of like 10, 15, whatever, fluctuates a little bit.
So you actually touched on something that I actually talk about a lot, which is I actually believe that your evening routine is as important, if not even more important, than your morning routine, because
100%.
I'm a firm believer that your tomorrow starts today. So you might have a kick-ass morning routine, but if you have a bad evening routine, right? You're not sleeping well, you're like, binge watching TV until like 2 in the morning, and then you expect to just function normally by just doing a set of routines in the morning. Can you shed a little bit more light about your perspective when it comes to evening routines, because you spoke about you wind down. What does that
Yeah.
really entail? Because I believe it contributes to your ability to be productive the following day.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, it's like, I mean, get off of the work and the email and the computers and that kind of stuff, right? Like, and oftentimes, so I'll every night I do some foam rolling and stretching. I think from what I've understood, foam rolling is super important. It does something to your parasympathetic nervous system or something. Like, it helps you calm down. It's like, is the bottom line. I'm not a technical nerd on these things. Banked has some trainings that we haven't released yet, that are like a liver stress release process and a heart stress release process with a foam roller, and breathing exercises, which are super powerful. So sometimes we'll do those together. We have an infrared sauna in our living room, so I'll oftentimes do that. So it's like, it's body stuff and just like calming down and being chill and easy, maybe some cuddle time with my wife, right? To set myself up for good sleep. You can't expect to go from like, go mode on like on the computer and doing work to going to bed and then having a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And sleep is something that I've been really like nerding on. I think it was like a Tom Bilyeu interview with Dave Asprey, where Dave Asprey says that you need to start sleeping like a pro, right? And there's something about that phrasing that I love. There's like, you have to take your sleep really seriously. So I'm tracking it using the Oura Ring. And I think the challenge has been deep sleep, getting enough deep sleep, and then wake ups. And I think the thing that really moved it for me, I came across this company called Biome Tech. They make these sprays, and this is not a sales pitch or anything, but it's fascinating stuff. So they're a company in Boston. They make, their whole thing is that our microbiome, which are all the bacteria that live as part of us, right, in our gut, but also on our skin and basically everywhere, is a super integral part of our beings, right, and of our health, and our physical health, but also our mental health and our like spiritual health, massively important and massively overlooked. And so what they do is they basically and we destroy that microbiome with our behavior, but also with our consumption, like alcohol and coffee and all these things. Like, one of the things they say is like, if your mom drank coffee while pregnant, that actually really hurt you, right? That hurts the baby and their upbringing. So these things that we're not really paying attention to. And so I got on these sprays, and immediately I just started to feel really tired for a while, which they say is normal, because it starts to reset that cycle. Most of us are kind of pumped up from stimulants or just from like the adrenaline stress of life or whatnot. And so getting to a place where you have a much more natural, calm state. So my deep sleep dramatically improved from like 20-30 minutes a night to now like an hour and a half per night, correlating with when I started these sprays. So I'm quite interested in this. I'm going to something they call Brain Camp in a couple weeks, a whole week where they do like the strongest version of this technology and combined with a bunch of therapists. So I'm excited to see what that's going to bring.
Yeah, keep me posted on what you learned from that. I think it's super interesting stuff. I track my sleep using Whoop, which is kind of like this wristband that you wear, and I've been taking a look into like how my performance has been tracking, especially with kind of like deep sleep and REM and whatnot. And your productivity is directly correlated to that, right? If you don't get enough REM the next day, you're not going to be as energetic, alert, clear, talk about mental clarity, because your body needs time to recharge, right? And just rest and reset. So it's super important for you to do that. One thing I admire about you is your mission, your life's mission, where you really want to serve, and you're doing it through your gifts, i.e., like, let's say, software engineer. You created Simplero. How many entrepreneurs have been impacted through that technology? And before you answer that, maybe share a little bit of what Simplero is.
Yeah, Simplero is the all-in-one platform for people doing information products of some sort, right? So it can be online courses, like cohort-based courses, or it can be an ebook, or it can be like a super high-end mastermind, or it can just be like you're doing health coaching and then you have some like additional modules that you teach via courses on the side, or really kind of any level, any scale of a business of that nature. Some people like sell access, like, you know, Pafai is like on Semblero, obviously, like we're selling access to videos with training that you can follow, right? So Semblero, the whole premise there is that we make it simple. It's in the name. We make it simple for you to do this kind of business and to live your life and run, you know, because we remove the need to use 5 or 7 different tools. We integrate it all in one. And that creates this immense sense of simplicity, and it just like frees up mental and financial, emotional, spiritual bandwidth for you as the business owner.
Simple rocks, right?
That's right. Simple rocks. Exactly.
So now dive into the part of your life's mission, which is the serving part. And I believe you now have a book.
Yeah. So there's like, service is at the heart of what we do, what Semblero is about. It's something that I discovered about myself, is that I really thrive on just serving people, right? Like in any, like just lightening up someone's day just makes me happy, right? Like I don't, it's not transactional. I don't need anything in return. It just makes me really happy. So that's part of the ethos and the vibe of Semblero. But the way I see it is like, you know, my bigger mission is around like, we human beings are incredibly powerful, creative beings, right? We can visualize stuff, we can make things up in our minds, and then we can make it real in the world, right? You know, it's incredible, it's amazing. Like my dog don't do that, right? Like, you know, human beings are just amazing. And yet, if you look around, most people are miserable, unhappy, unhealthy. And if you look out, like I ride the subway in New York sometimes, you look at people, like, do they look like, if we can create the world pretty much any way we want, why do we do it this way, right? So and I think the answer is that we don't know better, and we're not mature enough. And the way I think of it is like most of us, there's some place in our upbringing where we kind of got stalled, and it can be different ages at different areas in our lives. But I break it down into mental maturity, emotional maturity, physical maturity, and spiritual maturity. And just really briefly, mental maturity is like how you relate to your thoughts in your mind, right? Do you believe a thought just because it's in your head? Are you actively questioning your beliefs and expanding your universe in that way? Emotional maturity is about how you relate to your feelings. Are you suppressing them, or are you just like completely identified with them and vomiting them out at like whoever's nearby? Or do you have a healthy relationship with your feelings where you can feel them and you can feel everything, but you don't have to like identify with them or throw them at other people? Physically, right? Are you taking care of your body and your health? And spiritually, do you know why you're here? What's your purpose, right? Do you have meaning in your life? Are you in touch with and living your mission? So those elements are like, we all have to learn that, right? Our parents probably didn't give us that. And so there's that process of reparenting ourselves that we all need to do. And it's kind of dedicated the next 20 years of my life to helping as many people as possible do that for themselves, and then see where we end up as a society, as a world, like when we accomplish that. And there's nothing to stop us from doing that, essentially. Like all the sort of technology or all the information's already there. It's just not evenly distributed yet. And people aren't, it has to come from the inside. You have to want it, right? So there's not that strong enough desire in people to get there, or they're not even aware that it's a possibility. So, but I think once if we can really make some real improvement there, then we will see a completely different world.
That's amazing. And for any of those watching, if you want to check out Semblero, I'm going to put a link in the description where you can just go there and check out that tool, because I know some of the entrepreneurs who watch this channel, they're thinking about launching courses and information products. So just click the link below and you'll be able to check it out. So one of the things that you mentioned right now was about human beings being creative. So I'm just going to show a clip. And this is a clip that I took when I was at your house when you were in your zone of creativity. So let me just share the clip and then we'll get into it.
They still love me. Wow. Don't say that. I should put on a band-aid because I'm still bleeding from the.
So yeah, you love to write. You play the piano. Tell me, like, what's your creative process when you're coming up with music and writing songs and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, so I've found that, like, when it comes to just creative process around communication and that kind of stuff, it comes pretty easily. What I found is, like, I'm better at just, ask me the questions and I'll answer voice than I am at, like, write it down, then I'll write down my answers. Like, speaking it out is definitely gets at a deeper voice in me. But when it comes to music, it's a challenge. I didn't always write songs. I didn't always sing. It was a fairly recent thing, like, what is it now, 7 years ago maybe, that I started singing, and then, like, that led me into songwriting and music production and all these things. And learning to write creatively and write songs it's been hard. It's a completely different ballgame. What I found really worked for me is I sit down and I think of a specific person and, like, what is the message that I most want to impart on them? What do I want to say to them that they can take with them and that it'll be deeply, deeply meaningful to them? And then I just start, like, spitballing on that and writing stuff down at random. Or, if I have a co-writer, I'll, like, speak it out loud. And then usually some phrases will start to pop out, and then you work around that, or, like, you work from that. I recently saw I signed up for a songwriting class with Ryan Tedder, and he showed his process, which is that he'll put down just the harmonies, the chords, and then he'll just, like, make gibberish sound on melody over those harmonies, because he's like, the melody has to come first. The challenge that, like, again, songwriting is such a specific craft, right? But when you're trying to write a great song, the melody is king. Melody is way more important than the words. Obviously, if you're trying to say something meaningful, the words kind of need to be there as well. But like, so he actually starts with a melody first. And then then when you get to words, you need to lock down the chorus first, because that's the most important part. And then you can work backwards from there. So that's where the kind of the craftsmanship comes into it. But when it comes to the creative, it's just like, tune into what is the most meaningful thing for me that I want to say to someone. And then that unlocks the words.
So I want to dig on that point a little bit, but really spinning it for the entrepreneur. So what would you say is the melody for the entrepreneur, right? In a sense, because sometimes when people are trying to launch a new business, there's so many things you have to do, and sometimes it overwhelms you, and then you actually don't make any progress. So what would you say as an entrepreneur who's starting out? What is that melody that they need to work on first that will then help get to the chorus and then actually get to the song?
Totally. I love the metaphor on how you're running with it. I think it's like, what do you care about, right? Who do you care about, right? Who do you care about creating a great experience for, and tap into that, and then start crafting and shaping that experience, and really connecting with the people that you're serving and that you're trying to impact. Yeah, so that would be similar to my approach to songwriting, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then you've started so many businesses. What are some of the challenges you've faced as an entrepreneur? And how did you overcome some of these challenges?
Dude, being an entrepreneur is one endless stream of challenges, right? It's just like, which ones float to the top today?
Yeah,
And then, but it's why we do it, right? It is like, if it wasn't challenging, we wouldn't be doing it. And if it wasn't challenging, everybody would be doing it. So that it's great. You have to love that part of it too. I think biggest challenge, what for me has been in communicating the vision, and then finding, attracting, and insisting on bringing the right people on board. So I've always been like, the vision piece has come pretty easily to me when it comes to product or the company or like most things. And usually if it doesn't, it's because I'm out of alignment. It's because I'm trying to force something that I'm really not into. So that's always a good sign. But, it's not a good sign, it's a bad sign, but it's a good indicator that I need to adjust. But what I tend to forget to do is communicate the vision. Right. And so that's something that I've been working on lately, is like, write it down, communicate it, share it over and over and over again. I did that on the all hands call this Monday that we held, where I took a minute to talk about the bigger mission and the maturity piece that we talked about, and how Simplero fits into that, how everything I do fits into that, and how everybody on the team's job fits into that bigger perspective. And like, it really fired a light under everybody. And I could feel, even though we're all remote, I could really feel the energy in the space between us, and other people reported the same. And I just freaking forget to do it all the time, because it's in there, it's clear to me, and I forget that it's not clear to other people. And I forget that just because you said it once doesn't mean that it sticks, even though, I know for myself, just because you tell me something once, Kuda, doesn't mean that I remember it, right? Doesn't mean that it sticks, even with you. With you, John, I do. But and the other things, like the people, right? Just insisting on like finding the right people who are completely bought into that mission and who are aligned with on culture and values. Yeah, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my final question really gravitates around, the entrepreneurial mindset. So if you were to sum it up, what would you say is kind of like the entrepreneurial mindset that will enable you to succeed as an entrepreneur?
I would say that it is having that vision, like, where is it we're heading? That's out there, right? It's somewhat defined, but not fully defined. And then being really clear on the next step, right? Just the next step that's going to move us in that direction.
Yep.
And then it's the mindset piece is about a willingness to do whatever it takes on the outside, meaning like actual actions. I sit down and I write something, or I call someone and I set something out, whatever. Or on the inside, right? How do I need to grow? Who do I need to become? If you have that willingness to do anything, whatever it takes to realize that vision and identify and take that next step, like, you'll succeed. There's just no question, right? Yep. So I would say that's what it boils down to. And I think like coming full circle back to your first question of like, what did I do to get from like unworthiness and insecurity and all these things to where I am today? I think the thing that I see that sets me apart the most from everybody I grew up around with and so many of the other people that I know and that I meet, is that willingness to do whatever it takes, especially on the inside, right? The inner growth. Most people just aren't willing to do it, or they aren't willing to invest the money that it takes. Like the brain camp thing that I mentioned that I'm doing next week is not a cheap, it's a really high investment, right? And I'm like, all right, let's do it, bring it on. I've never done anything like that didn't pay off, but I do remember how scary it felt to like, what if it doesn't work out? What if the person's a quack? Or what if it's a waste of money or anything? Like, none of it has ever been a waste of money. Like, literally nothing, none of it. And yet I see all these people who are like, well, I can't because, and I like, dude, you can. You just have to make the decision that you want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, facing your fears, right, head on, and just addressing them, because if you don't, they'll just keep on growing and growing and growing, and your potential is moving and you're still like in the same place. So I think, making that investment and just being bold enough to say like, hey, I'm just gonna attack it head on, and the best thing is I'll get rid of it and I'll fulfill my potential. I think it's great. And it reminds me of what just happened with Richard Branson, right? Him going to the moon and really just kind of like facing this goal and saying like, hey, I'm gonna do this. He's super successful, right? He could have just said like, hey, with all the things that I've done with Virgin in my age, I can just chill on the island and not have to worry about trying to unlock this next frontier. But he just went in head on and look at the possibilities that could come out of that. So that's quite interesting. And I think you've met him at Necker Island, I think, right?
I have, yeah. I met him twice. I met him at an event before that as well. But yeah, I did. Yeah, it was
Cool.
great. Super fascinating too. It's always amazing that we meet one of your heroes, right? Like, in real life, in the flesh. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Calvin. I think, you shared a lot of insight and knowledge, and congratulations on all of the success. And good luck with the manufacturing piece for Body Meal. Would really love to try that product in the marketplace. But
bodymeal.us. Bodymeal.us.
I'll put the link in the description as well. Right, but it's cool, bodymeal.us. And correct. Try it. I tried the sample. It was really delicious and it's super nutritious. And, a lot of entrepreneurs were always focused on just putting in the time and just working and working and working. But I think equal amount of effort, if probably not more, should be put into your health and wellness, because 100%. It is your body that will enable you to actually then show up, have the right energy to actually go out and achieve those goals that you want to achieve. So make sure that you're exercising, eating right, and just looking after yourself is of priority.
100% right. And also, like, what value is all the money and all the achievements, all the success if your health is crap? If you can't, like, if you're in pain and you can't enjoy it, right? It's no use.
That is true. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining today, and looking forward to seeing some of the amazing things that you're going to achieve over the next couple of years, and all the best.
Thank you, brother. It was great to see you again.